You're listening to the Cross-Check NHL Show, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Andrew Berkshire and Mary Clarke.
Welcome to the Cross-Check NHL Show, as always, or at least usual. I am Andrew Berkshire from Game Over on SDPN, and I'm here with my lovely co-host, Mary Clarke, with Luna, the co-star of the show today, who keeps peeking in. And Mary's been away from home the last couple of nights, so Luna is feeling attention deprived. Everyone's going to love seeing the cat on the show. Mary's a little worried about it, but I think it's a positive. Everyone wants to see the cat. So, Luna, barge in as much as you want. It's fine. Thanks for making the Cross-Check NHL Show your first listen every Tuesday and Friday. Let's get right into it, because I want to get into this show as fast as we can and get through it, because, yes, I love the hockey talk, but I know Mary and I are both excited to talk about Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, because we both saw it before this weekend. So we'll give you a spoiler warning before we start that. It's going to be at the end of the show, our last segment. But before we talk about that, obviously we got to talk about some favored teams disappointing so far. The Panthers, Flames, and Rangers are all down in their series so far. That could change for a few of them by the time you listen to this show, because we record on Monday. It'll come out Tuesday morning. So bear with us on that. The New York Islanders fired Barry Trotz, which is absolutely wild. We're going to talk about that. And then the Ottawa Senators fired Pierre McGuire, I believe only a year after they hired him.
I think it's been less than that. Less than that.
You're right. I think it was around free agency last year. So it's only May. It's it's a short tenure back in the NHL for Pierre McGuire, his first tenure since 1994. So we're going to talk about that as well. But first, before we get into all that, excluding Multiverse of Madness, Mary, how was your weekend?
Good. We were talking off pod before the show started. It's like that 30 Rock meme. It's like lemon. It's only Wednesday. It's only Monday, because for us it's Monday. By the time you hear this, it'll be Tuesday. But what a week it's been so far. Yes, I have been away from home in the past couple of days. Like, I've been dog sitting for a friend, and I will be throughout the week. So I have been sleeping over at my friend's place while they are away. And Luna has not taken kindly to that, because she misses me and she demands attention. So if you see her running through my screen, I'm sorry. I can't control it. She does what she wants. Usually she ignores me while I podcast. But other than that, it was good. I mean, it was Mother's Day weekend. Got to see my grandmother on Sunday, and that was nice. Got to have like a very, chill weekend, because the weather was really bad for the past couple of days. So like it was kind of just like a very low key weekend, like I said, taking care of my friends' dogs, watching playoff hockey. But now thankfully on Monday, it's above 60. It's sunny. I'm feeling refreshed now that I can see the sun again, because for a couple of days there, it was not fun.
Yeah, we actually had a beautiful weekend here. So,
oh, nice. Well, that's good.
Not relatable overall. We spent a lot of the weekend outside. We built some flower boxes in the front yard with a friend of mine, Mark Dumont, who works for the Montreal Canadiens. He came over and hung out with Dylan, and Dylan actually helped us put everything together and like dig down into the lawn and pull stuff up and pull out some weeds, plant some flowers, water everything. It was fun. It was a good weekend, but I am exhausted. We bought probably 50 bags of dirt from Canadian Tire, which I don't know if you've ever heard of that place, Mary, but it's like home hardware, but Canadian.
Oh, it's like a hardware store. Like here in America, I guess it'd be like Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever.
Yeah, Home Depot, but Home Depot's a bit more specific. Canadian Tire also has like household items like coffee makers and stuff like that.
Interesting.
So it's like a combination of almost Walmart and Home Depot, I guess, but without the groceries and clothing that Walmart has. It's weird. Anyway, it's a department store. It's a catch-all. They started out as a tire company, obviously.
Yeah, I was going to say, based on the name, it doesn't sound like they do what they originally did.
Yes. Well, they still do. They still do have like tire changing, and you can get your car fixed there, or at least most of them, I think. But not the main thing they do anymore, which is it's Canada's weird. Just like America.
It's all weird, Andrew.
It is. We live in a weird timeline. It's gonna get pruned to give a
we're having
reference.
a weird. I think we're having a weird Monday. I can feel it. The vibes are weird, but I'm here.
The
for
vibes are weird
because it's been a weird couple of days between the playoffs and the news we're about to talk about. So I think it
100%.
deserves. I think this podcast deserves to be a little on the weird side because, whoo boy, what a handful of days it's been.
Yeah, so we're gonna try to go rapid fire through the first 3 series here. The favorite is trailing, right? I think let's start with the Rangers, but because I feel like that's the easiest one.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the Penguins were better from the start. They were the team that I picked. What's interesting about this is they've been able to do it with their third string goaltender.
Yeah.
And kind of neutralizing Shesterkin in all but game 2. So that's pretty impressive overall. They've drastically outplayed the Rangers when all things are even. So I'm not really surprised at how that's going. Obviously, the Rangers have a chance to tie it again, but Tristan Jarry is practicing now. So the Penguins might have to, or might not have to, rely on Louis Domingue for much longer.
Yeah, I mean, it really has been... We came into the series of a tale of 2 goaltenders, or I guess now 3, considering Louis Domingue is in the mix. And it has not gone, I think, the way many people would have expected it to. At the outset of the series. I mean, we looked at Shesterkin. I know Andrew, talked about he didn't have any playoff experience, but the best time to get playoff experience is in the playoffs. So
this is true.
So,
and I mean, his first game this year was spectacular.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I believe he was just short of setting the record for the most goals saved above expected in a playoff game ever.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really great game. He had what was it? 70 some saves, close to that.
79.
So yeah, it was a ridiculous number. But yeah, I mean, he just hasn't looked like his normal self, and the Rangers just haven't looked like the team they have been around him, and that's been the difference. I mean, the Penguins have gotten, they've been able to exploit that weakness, and they've just been able to throw the Rangers off their game, and they haven't been able to find it. So it is this series has turned out drastically different than I thought from, obviously all the goaltending drama in terms of, Louis Domingue. I don't think anybody could have predicted that. But yeah, I mean,
story though.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely
fantastic.
It's a great story. It really is. I mean, this, there's always some really awesome moments in the playoffs that just are born from these, wacky moments and stuff like that, and a player stepping up like Domingue has done has just been really awesome to see. But yeah, this series has not gone the way I thought it was going to, especially with the way the Penguins ended their season. They just, I don't know, it seems they flipped places.
They looked done, didn't they?
Yeah, they look done, and now it's the Rangers who kind of look a little bit done. It's just I mean, it really is just like that Penguins mentality. They just never want to quit ever. And I mean, you can see it in the way, Crosby and all of them continue to play and stuff like that. It's at least a treat to watch because we're seeing, some of the greats, and who knows how long this core will be together. I mean, it is like a lot of them are nearing the end of their careers, but like I said, this series has not gone the way I thought it was going to, but there's still a chance for New York to tie it up and, wrestle control back from the Penguins, but it is not looking as nearly as secure as I thought it was going to.
Yeah, and the biggest difference in this series is like in terms of what's keeping it close, which is crazy, because the Penguins have controlled 59% of the expected goals in all situations, which is way bigger of a difference than I expected. I thought the Penguins were going to win this thing in like a 7-game nail biter, but the goals are only 13-12, which means that Shesterkin has saved 5 goals above expected. A little bit more than 5 goals above expected, which is crazy in 3 games. That's a lot. Like saving 1 goal above expected in a single game is relatively rare. Like that's a very, very good goaltending performance. But what's even more interesting is that Domingue and DeSmith, they haven't been bad either for a second and third string goaltender. They're also slightly above expected. The Rangers have pretty decent shot quality. They've racked up 12.48 expected goals for, and they've scored 12. So it's not like the goaltending for the Penguins has submarined them either, which is really allowing this series to compensate for Shesterkin's spectacular play. So even if he doesn't look like himself, and it's funny, we're talking about him not looking like himself. I know he got pulled last game. He still has a .928 save percentage in the playoffs so far.
It's just weird. It's just like, I don't know. It's a weird series. It really is.
It is.
It's just been. I mean, I hope this goes the full distance of 7 because I think we deserve it considering what these teams have put up so far. Just the Rangers have just fallen short so far. I think of what people had expected of them, and the Penguins are looking much better than what they were coming into these playoffs. I don't think it was a hot take to say that the Penguins were really on the back foot here coming into the playoffs, just based on how they, ended the season. So, but
Yeah.
it's the playoffs. It's basically like a new season. Nothing else matters except what you do in the playoffs. So,
And I think you raise a good point there, the whole new season thing, because I know John Marino had a very up and down 2021, 2022 season. Got a lot of criticism, people talking about maybe the Penguins shouldn't tie their hitch to him or whatever you want to call it, sign him to a big contract, or like he might not be part of their future core, right? In the playoffs now, with John Marino on the ice, the Penguins have outshot attempted the Rangers 99-39 in 3 games. He is leading both teams. It is incredible. And the combination of Marino, Gensel, and Crosby, I know Marino's a defenseman, he's not on that line per se, but Gensel and Crosby is the duo, right? That they keep together, and the third person can be whoever. Often it's Brian Rust, but sometimes it's other people. Yeah. When that line is on with Marino, it's in the Rangers' end constantly. And I know watching the last game where Crosby did his like back and forth twisty turns behind the net on K'Andre Miller. And K'Andre Miller is so good and such a good skater, especially for a big man. And watching Crosby continue to do that at nearly 35 years old, as somebody who's the same age as him, I'm like, yeah, old man, you get that young kid. You show him who's better at turning in tight circles, Sidney. You get him. I thought it was awesome.
Good. Yeah, he's so good.
It reminds me when he did that to Jason Spezza back in the day. And I remember a lot of people were like dragging Spezza for being terrible defensively because Crosby did that same thing to him for like a full minute straight before finally escaping him and sending a puck back to Letang for a goal. But really, they should have been talking about how long Jason Spezza stuck with Sidney Crosby doing that, because he's been doing that to people now for 15 years?
Yeah.
His edges are just incredible.
Yeah, he's great. Oh, it's at least such a treat to watch Crosby still in his prime. I mean, it's like I said, it's a real treat to watch these guys, and I hope it goes 7. I think we deserve it. I don't have as much confidence in the Rangers going forward unless they can flip some sort of switch. But we'll see. I mean, the series isn't over. Game 4 is going to be a huge deciding factor here. So we shall
absolutely
see.
And speaking of series not being over and, we needed to see something different, the Flames and Stars series is so boring.
I know. It's so
bad.
It's so sad.
For whatever reason, the Flames have let the Stars suck all the life out of a very entertaining team during the regular season. In 3 games, just contrasting that with the Penguins series, where the expected goals just mounting up together combined are at 30 expected goals through 3 games. That's a lot. That's a highly entertaining series. In this series, the expected goals are 16, and at 5-on-5, it's 8.5. It's brutal.
Yeah,
it's brutal.
Bad. So bad.
The 2 teams in 3 games have scored 2 even strength goals each. How?
It's such a shame to see the Flames offense sputter like this. And I don't know if it's just the Stars are playing their game to perfection and not allowing the Flames to do what they want, or just, they've fallen off at the wrong time. But it is a shame because, I think coming in, we were both super high on the Flames in this offense and what they can do. One of the more electric offenses of the NHL, one of the best lines, if not the best offensive line in the NHL, just absolutely been hamstrung here in this series. And Calgary's going to need to get their offense going in order to surpass the Stars, because the Stars can win games like this. I mean, they have won games like this and now hold at least a 2-1 lead in the series as of Monday. But the Flames need to get their offense going or they're going to be out of the playoffs again. And, all that talk we talked about, Daryl Sutter being an incredibly great coach might get thrown out the window if they can't figure it out.
Yeah,
I don't know, Andrew.
it's
It's
bad.
been this has definitely been another series where it has not gone the way I thought it was going to. And I mean, props to Dallas for, playing their game, sticking this out, proving everybody wrong here. But I think it reflects more on maybe just the Flames overall than the Stars. Uh, but there's still a handful of games left to go in this series. So
Yeah,
I hope
there's
Calgary
at
turns it
least two.
around, because it'd be a shame if they go out in the first round with their offense that, has looked as deadly as it has over the regular season. But if they can't get it together, they're going to be out.
Yeah, it's bad. And one of the big reasons that Calgary's struggling right now is their top line just hasn't been very good. The top
Yep.
line that was so dominant all year long. Matt Tkachuk and Elias Lindholm are their two second and third worst forwards in terms of dominating play so far in this postseason. So only Dylan Dubé has been worse. Their best three forwards have been their fourth liners. That's an issue. Like, I know
It
Milan
is.
Lucic is a good player for a fourth liner. So is Trevor Lewis. But you can't have your fourth liners being the only ones that hem the opposing team into their zone. You got to have something else going. And like Toffoli has been all right, but that line hasn't scored yet. They need Toffoli, Mangiapane, Blake Coleman, Michael Backlund. They need to contribute offensively because the top line hasn't been doing their top line things, right?
Mhm.
They've been kind of getting railroaded by the Stars' best players. So at a certain point,
and Joe
you got to figure
Pavelski
that
is
out.
just on a mission. The dude's just
Yes.
on a mission. Like,
Yeah,
what a
100%.
story he's been this year, though. So,
Yeah,
all
another old
props to the
guy.
Stars. Yeah, another old guy. I mean, like I said, it's another great story. He just doesn't want to lose. Like, he's just absolutely willing this team to win, and that's at least been fun to see from that perspective. But I hope Calgary at least has some fight left in them, because this absolutely is the most boring series to watch because of the lack of anything offensive. I mean, we were going to talk about the Avs series with the Predators that could very well be over, I think, by the time you hear this. There at least is a little more entertaining because there's goals being scored in that series. All by one team, sure, but there's goals being scored. So, yeah, it's just a little bit of a disappointment here for the Flames so far.
Yeah, it is. And speaking of disappointments, the Florida Panthers,
Oh.
my God, this is the last one we're going to talk about. We're going to try to do it super quickly. They've been bad. Like, not only have the Florida Panthers not generated much offense outside of one game, game 2, they're also being outplayed overall by the Washington Capitals. And at 5-on-5, they're still a little bit better, but they should be a lot better. They have a 51% advantage in terms of like controlling play. Now, in terms of controlling goals, they're actually much better. They're outscoring the Capitals 8-5 at even strength. But when you account for special teams, it's 6-0 for the Washington Capitals. That's embarrassing.
You wouldn't have expected that at all, considering what we talked about this series, like coming into the playoffs. Just like, Florida's the one with the high tempo offense all the time, best offense in the NHL, versus a Capitals team that has Ovechkin and not much else in terms of their offensive production. That on paper they shouldn't be able to compete. They aren't in the same league as, like, the Capitals aren't in the same league as the Predators, or the Panthers. My bad. Too many teams with P's in their name. But the point here is, though, that this is just another disappointing show from a team that's supposed to be really high octane offense and just isn't putting it together. And also their goaltending is kind of failing them too. Like, it's just the worst fears for the Panthers are coming to light here. Their offense is being shut down and their goaltending can't help them out when they need it. And it's just all going wrong for the Panthers in this series. And I mean, props to the Capitals for showing that they're not dead yet. They're that we pronounced them dead too soon, basically. Because I think a lot of people, most people, probably had Florida moving on from this series.
Everyone who isn't a Capitals fan.
And I mean, even Capitals fans probably came into the series like kind of down, not down, but kind of like not expecting a lot, because I mean, these two teams could not be more different in terms of like what they were like in the regular season. But the playoffs, like I said before, different. It's a new season, and Washington is showing up here, and good on them for doing so. But this is just yet another example of this Florida team being disappointing because, they haven't done a lot in the playoffs. I mean, sure, they've gotten, like halted by, the Tampa Bay Lightning in multiple years. And, we know how good they are. But, this should have been their season to, make some noise. There's still games for them to do that. But
they got to wake up, though.
They got to wake up. This has to be a gut check for them. It's
part of the issue has been Mackenzie Weegar and Aaron Ekblad have just not been good. Like defensively, they've been terrible. Part of that could be that Ekblad's still coming back from injury and he's not 100% for sure. But that pairing has been brutal so far. And outside of that, there's also the Sam Bennett, Claude Giroux, Ryan Lomberg, I believe also, was it Mason Marchment who's played on that line? That line has been absolutely shredded. Sorry to tell you, Mary, but the worst player on the Florida Panthers so far has been Claude Giroux, unfortunately.
It's fine. It's not
he's
fine.
He's still a Philadelphia Flyer at heart, so he's playing like the Flyers would. Well,
yeah. I mean, I just hope he did good for them in the regular season. So it's clearly still there. I think like
something's going wrong.
Yeah, he may be the worst player right now in the playoffs, but like he's not the reason they're losing. Like it's a combined factors with this Florida team. And I hope they wake up. Like I said, I hope that, the favorites of these series we've all talked about, like, are able to like punch back, not just so I look good with my predictions, because if, things go the way they are, my predictions are in shambles.
Cooked.
But yeah, exactly. But also because it's fun. You want long series, you want, like, sure, it'd be like upsets are fun, but like, we talked so much about these teams having, really good offenses, or in the Rangers case, a really awesome goaltender that is, electric to watch. And so far, none of these things have come true. And it's just kind of a shame in terms of like the overall hockey enjoyment, I guess. I mean, you still have like the Avs doing Avs things and whatnot, but like, I was expecting maybe a little bit different things from these playoffs. And finally, for the better offensive teams to win out and have and be really fun, and it still could. It's just kind of a disappointment so far that these teams we kind of build as the top end teams, top offensive teams, just haven't really panned out so far.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we're going to talk up next about the firing of Barry Trotz by the New York Islanders and how bewildering that is. But first, I got to tell you about BetOnline. Our partners, BetOnline, continue to be the number one source for all of your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even the next season's NLF futures. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sport wagering information, from live betting, playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today and use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thanks for making the Cross-Check NHL Show your first listen every Tuesday and Friday. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast, nightly recaps of every NHL game with analysis from our local experts. You won't find this kind of show anywhere else in the world. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So, Mary, this decision to fire Barry Trotz has taken everyone by surprise.
Yep.
Not just because the Islanders like stormed back at the end of the season and actually looked respectable, but because the way this season fell off, like it just doesn't, I don't see any way that you could blame it on Barry Trotz.
No.
13 straight road games to start the year. Things just got off the rails. They had major COVID and injury situations. I think they were one of the teams like the Canadiens that had to play games with like 15 players. To me, I'm looking at this and I see an old roster without much for prospects. I know there's Noah Dobson, but other than that, not much there. They had a window to win. It's probably slamming shut next year. And Lou is realizing that he put this team together. They don't really have a future 4 or 5 years from now, and he's deflecting to someone else.
Mm-hmm. This really is a Lou Lamoriello move. It is mystifying as to why they made this decision in the short term. Barry Trotz ends his Islanders career 152, 102, and 34.
Whew.
That is, I mean, like,
That's not bad.
No, that's not bad at all. And sure, the Islanders took a nosedive this year, but a lot of that was because of factors out of their control.
Yep.
The being on the road and stuff like that, that is an absolute killer. We should have all kind of seen that coming in terms of just like them taking a hit. They were able to rebound a bit, but it was, too little too late. But, sometimes that happens. It's hockey. It can be sometimes a very random sport. You can get teams that are really good that suddenly have really bad years just out of nowhere just because. Especially also because we're still living in COVID times and it is still messing with teams. I mean, who was it on the Bruins that was out because of COVID? Was it Charlie McAvoy that was like sitting? So
I don't
like
know.
I think I saw it the other day. But regardless, like COVID is still impacting the NHL, even in our current atmosphere as it is. But the Islanders got wrecked with that and the having to play that many games away from home. It's just it was just a mess. But I don't blame that on Barry Trotz. I don't know how you can.
No.
This feels like such a weird reaction, like overreaction to the problems the Islanders faced this year. And you're right, it feels kind of like a deflection from the team that Lou built because the Islanders sure had a really great defensive system brought along by Barry Trotz, and the players they had fit into that. And we've seen it get them to the Eastern Conference final. What was it, back-to-back years, basically, right? Against Tampa Bay?
Let's go over the last few years of Barry Trotz in the
Mhm.
playoffs. We'll go back to when he was hired by Washington. Lost in round two, lost in round two, lost in round two, wins the Stanley Cup, lost in round two, conference final. That's a pretty damn good resume for the last 7 years. And like, if you think that this year where the Islanders for the first half of the season were like an absolute joke, they still finished 37, 35, and 10.
Yeah.
Like over 500.
How many points do they have by season's end?
I'd have to do the math in my head. I'm not looking at the standings.
Okay, I'll look at the standings real quick because the Eastern Conference, we talked about it. The Eastern Conference this year was an absolute beast. Every single team got over 100 points in the Eastern Conference. And what are the Islanders at? 84. Usually what they say is 90 points gets you into the playoffs? Kind of in
90,
a normal year.
92 to 95 in the East.
Yeah, I mean, the Islanders, if they had a couple more wins, in a normal year, they might have been right in it in terms of the playoff race. Obviously, it's not a normal year. Obviously, the Islanders had, put themselves behind the 8 ball early and just torpedoed their chances. But I don't know. I feel like you can give Barry Trotz a mulligan on this year. Like, you kind of have to.
How could you not?
Yeah, exactly. With the resume he has. But, this is the choice the Islanders have made. Now they're facing down, I don't know. They're facing down a coaching search where they got rid of probably the best coach in the NHL, considering his resume and considering his style. I know not, a lot of people don't like the style of hockey that he brings, but
myself included. I find it painfully boring. But he's effective.
He gets results. And they just fired probably the best coach in the NHL, in terms of just the resume he brings and the style of hockey. Is conductive to getting into the playoffs and winning rounds in the playoffs, and even winning a Stanley Cup too. So it is just, where do you go from here if you're the Islanders? You have to make changes in your coaching department and you have to make changes on your roster too, because they need to be able to score. And who knows what the identity of this team is going to look like. But now we've got basically the best head coach on the market for teams like Philadelphia, Seattle, Detroit. I mean, that kind of feels like the easy pick for Steve Yzerman is, bring Barry Trotz in. That.
No
I don't
kidding.
know. I know that feels like it could be a match made in heaven right there. So
I know a lot of folks up here want Winnipeg to go after Barry Trotz just because, that team just can't play defense.
Yeah. I mean,
you might even not have to make any roster changes if you bring Barry Trotz in.
Yeah. So if you're a team looking for a head coach, the best one just fell into someone's lap. The Islanders just gave whomever picks up Barry Trotz a gift, or an absolute gift. I didn't think the Islanders would make this move. I know it was I don't know if it was a possibility, but I heard it being, like I saw people on Twitter being like, do you think the Islanders will do this? And I was like, no way. And they did. And I don't know. The Islanders had something really good going on for them. And I think they could have made, one last, attempt this upcoming season. And now that unless they can pick up somebody else that's really, really good and make some really good roster changes, just I don't know. It feels like this Islanders team is gone too soon, basically. Like there should have been at least one more year with this team the way it was. And it's just kind of a shame we're not going to get that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. If they go if they try to create more of like an offensive minded team and do something like unleash Barzal, right? Because I think we all expected Matt Barzal to be a lot better offensively than he's been the last little stretch here. Like he's still good, but Matt Barzal should be a point per game player. I guess he's not that far beyond it. 59 and 73 this year, but last year again 45 and 55. 60 and 68, 62 and 82. That rookie season with 85 points in 82 games, it seems like he's never been able to get back to that level of dominance. Mm-hmm. And I think we expect him to do that, especially like his shooting percentage was low this year as well. I wonder if they try to do something like that. But I just don't think the roster that Lou built is conducive to that. Like they don't have a lot of high-end offensive guys. They have a lot of gritty guys who play two-way games. They built 4 Trotz. So this to me signals either they're going to try something radically different and see if it works for a year, or they're heading into blow it up mode. Yeah. And I don't know. Do you really want Lou Lamoriello to be the guy to blow it up when he's the one who built it? I think you want somebody else in there, somebody younger. I know Lou isn't behind the times per se, but he's also not necessarily cutting edge anymore. His management style is very old school. So as much as I know people like him around the league, at a certain point, you probably want to look at something else. But for Barry Trotz, he's going to have his pick.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's going to be 10 plus teams that want to hire him this summer.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine what it's like to be Barry Trotz right now. It's like, sure, you got fired, you got laid off, but you are the, people are not
going to get a raise.
Yeah, he's going to get a raise. I don't know. He could get kind of whatever he wants. He's got the leverage. He's got, the people are going to come knocking at his door, and he's going to be fielding offers from like left and right. Like he's got all the leverage here, and good on him. Like he seems to be a good dude, great coach, had some real good success, and the team that picks him up is going to get an absolute gift here. And I cannot believe the Islanders gave that away. I really just can. It's just shocking to me still.
If the Leafs go out in 7 again, is Barry Trotz the coach of the Leafs?
Oh man. Oh boy, that is a
from high octane offense to shutdown defense. Matthews is a 30-goal scorer next year.
Oh man, I don't know. Oh, it's so hard. Like, I don't know. I don't think so. I think
no, me either.
I don't think so. It would be a funny story, but no.
If he goes to a high-end team, like a team that's trying to compete now, I think it'll be Vegas.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
because Pete DeBoer has not made himself a lot of friends.
I mean,
recently.
he wasn't. Yeah, I mean, he wasn't like Vegas didn't make any firings yet. But now that Barry Trotz is on the board, that feels you're right. That feels like a very Vegas move. Selfishly, I want him in Philadelphia because that would solve a lot of the Flyers' problems. In terms of just bad defense and being able to prop up a goaltender and whatnot, but I don't think it's going to happen just because it's Philly, baby. It never turns out our way. So yeah, we wasted all of our not wasted, but we used up all of our luck on the Eagles Super Bowl, and it was worth it. I'll tell you that it was worth it, but it still is kind of suffering every so often. But
it's worth it at the moment, and then still hurts. All right. Yeah. Next up, we're going to talk about another firing. Pierre McGuire, fired by the Ottawa Senators less than a year after he was hired. But first, we got to tell you about Built Bar. Summer's coming, and with summer, you're going to need some food on the go. Built Bars are the perfect snack to take with you on family vacations. Throw them in your bags and your kids' backpacks, and make sure that everyone has a bar so you're fueled for your summer adventures. The best part about Built Bars, they're healthy and delicious. No more sacrificing delicious food for health. With Built Bar, you can have both, and it's easy. All you have to do is go to built.com and order now. All Built Bars and Puffs are covered in 100% real chocolate. That means that with Built Bar, you can eat healthy and you actually enjoy doing it. Have you tried Built Puffs yet? We're going crazy for the Puffs. They come in crazy flavors like banana cream pie and even churro. Who doesn't want a protein bar that tastes like a churro? And they're only 140 calories. Sign me up. If that's not enough flavor for you, then you might want to try the Mixed Box. The Mixed Box comes with 12 flavors of bars and puffs. Built Bar makes sure that there's something for everyone. Know what my favorite flavor is? It's definitely that mint chocolate. I love mint chocolate. It's just, I had a mint chocolate Girl Scout cookie blizzard at Dairy Queen the other day, which is something we have in Canada. I don't know if they have that in the States for your guys' Scout cookies, but very good. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar, which usually has 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. Go to Built.com and get all your favorites. Banana cream pie, raspberry, double chocolate, and so many more. They're all delicious, and new flavors are coming out all the time. Check them out at Built.com. Go to Built.com and use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off of your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right, Mary, so I can't deny I'm feeling a little bit of schadenfreude over this whole thing because I am a Pierre McGuire disliker. However, I am disappointed that this news was broken by a friend of mine, AJ Jakobech, because I wanted Pierre LeBrun to announce it, because then it would be Pierre reporting on Pierre violence, because Pierre Dorion made this move, and I can't get enough Pierre in this story. So it's all about Pierre right now. I keep on saying Pierre. Mm-hmm. So obviously Melnyk is the one who hired Pierre McGuire last summer.
I could hear you in your Pierre? Head fumbling over that because you made such a fuss about the Pierre thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm going to let you sit in it. It's okay.
That's fine. Melnyk hired Pierre McGuire last summer. Not above Pierre Dorion, but in management, it wasn't Pierre Dorion's decision. This was like whispered about at the time. Now, it seemed like everything was hunky-dory, but now that Melnyk is gone, rest in peace,
yeah.
All of a sudden, Pierre Dorion's like, there's the door. Get the hell out of here. And the fact that it's not like it's announced as a firing and not like a mutual decision to like, oh, they're parting ways, tells me that it was not all hunky-dory between Pierre squared. It's very funny for an organization that declared the rebuild was over last summer and then went out and had a worse season than they had the year before, with a lot of their players not taking the step forwards that they thought they were going to have. And the most high-profile moment of their entire season was one of their players being called out for being a big diver.
Yeah.
So it hasn't been a banner year for the Ottawa Senators. Clearly, Dorion is trying to reassert control over management now that he has an opportunity to do so and nobody breathing down his neck. But this is a wild one.
Obviously, for Senators fans, this is a big win. But for hockey fans, I think this is a big loss.
Because Pierre's going to be back on TV?
Yes, in terms of meme potential, because, like, if, you're a hockey fan and something bad happens to the Senators, you can blame it on Pierre McGuire, rightfully or not. But, that's how it is. But now we could be subjected to Pierre McGuire on our televisions again, Andrew, and I don't want that. I don't want that. This is such a huge loss for us, the hockey fandom. I hope ESPN and TNT or whatever are like, no, Pierre, you can't come back. But, I don't have any faith in that. So I hope he gets a hockey job somewhere else, away from a team I like. And
yeah, I'm not thinking he will. There's a reason why he wasn't in hockey from 94 until
Can he just go away? I mean, he's probably a fine person. He's probably maybe.
I will say this about Pierre McGuire. At the very least, I know he talks way too much on the broadcast and he brings up irrelevant information, like where somebody went to high school and played high school hockey, and he's obsessed with Shattuck St. Mary's. But at the very least, unlike most color commentators, he often gives information that a regular person wouldn't have. whether that's somebody saying something on the bench or a coaching adjustment that's actually real and tangible. A lot of color commentators just talk gibberish or just say what's happening on the ice. And I don't need somebody to tell me what's happening on the ice. For me, a play-by-play person isn't there to tell me what's going on. They're there to elevate the drama of the game, which is why I always loved Bob Cole up in Canada, where he would make a litany of mistakes, especially in his old age. But you could tell the game was exciting if Bob Cole was excited. And the color commentator should add something that I didn't notice or that the average person wouldn't notice. And I feel like Pierre McGuire does do that. He just doesn't stop there, which is something that he should really learn and is unlikely to learn.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, he can be very grating to listen to. He just, talks a little bit too much about things that aren't
No
important.
one cares about.
Yeah, exactly. I think maybe there's room for the type of things he can provide, but just in small doses. I don't know. It's just sad for hockey fandom that we might get, he might be put back on our televisions in a way that, isn't conductive to, people learning anything or like getting new fans excited about the game and stuff like that. That's, the real disappointment here. But, it's just, he really didn't do anything in Ottawa, did he? Like, I posted that Sailor Moon meme that's like, my job here is done. It's like, but you didn't do anything. That's kind of how it feels. It really does. I have no idea what he did. And it was clear that it wasn't enough, or Pierre Dorion felt his job was being threatened by Pierre McGuire's presence, that, they parted ways or he was fired and whatnot. Just, I don't know. I could not tell you what he provided to the Senators team.
Well, there are rumors that McGuire kind of was given carte blanche to overrule the scouting staff at last year's draft. So coincidentally, that draft was called by many scouts one of the worst drafts the team has ever done in history. So they picked Tyler Boucher 10th overall. A lot of people that I trust had him as a third round pick. Boucher has he went to Boston University in the NCAA, had 3 points in 17 games, quit university, went to the Ottawa 67s in the OHL, couldn't put up a point per game as a 19-year-old, relatively large human who was a top 10 overall pick in his draft plus 1 year, put up 14 points in 24 games, only 7 goals, and was a minus player. Not looking great for him. And right after he was picked, Columbus took Cole Sillinger, who came into the NHL this year and put up 31 points in 79 games. So that's it's a rough comparison. So there's some of that maybe that has played into it, but I don't know. I think that anytime we start splitting over what a certain person in management does and we don't actually know, we're always going to say the person that we don't like is the one who made all the bad decisions, right?
Yeah, see, exactly. I still think overall this is probably, it's going to be a good thing for the Senators. I mean, it's going to be a new era for them. It really is. I mean, without Eugene Melnyk and whatnot, this team can shape its identity now anew, basically. And, I hope they make the smart decisions that, because there's some really good and fun pieces there. So I hope that they become relevant again, essentially. And maybe this is, another step towards, bringing in, smarter hockey men and, surrounding themselves with a good core of people. So we'll see. We'll see. But I think if you're a Senators fan, you're probably elated at this news, if I had to guess.
Yeah, most likely. And there's not really much else to say for that. So we'll end the hockey talk here so we can talk about Doctor Strange in a moment. But before I go into the multiverse of madness with Mary, we got to tell you about Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all of the parts that you need for your car or truck. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing only the brand their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. Save time and money when using Rock Auto. Why choose to spend 30, 50, or even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? Prices at Rock Auto are reliably low for every customer. They have everything you could possibly need, from brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so that they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts that your car will ever need. rockauto.com. So, Mary, we both ventured together on the same day at different times into the multiverse of madness to see what was going on with Wanda and Doctor Strange. So, big spoiler warning here. If you haven't seen the movie yet, pause and come back after you have, because we are not going to limit ourselves from talking about spoilers.
No, we're gonna go deep in the spoiler sauce. So
exactly,
So
Mary, overall, what were your first impressions?
I liked it. Hello, Luna. She wants to get a word in otherwise. I liked it a lot. I thought the cinematography was incredible. It was a really visually, between the horror elements they added, the camera cuts, the way they framed certain shots was really distinctive to me in a way that we don't often see in Marvel films. I'm trying to remember, Thor Ragnarok was a good, visually distinct, had really awesome framing shots movie. That was one that I really enjoyed from that perspective. But overall, I had a really good time with it. I don't know how it ranks overall in terms of my, Marvel movie scale of enjoyment, but I had a good time while watching it. Decisions were made by characters. I really enjoyed everything that was going on. And I was just really intrigued by all the stuff that was happening. And I thought the first Doctor Strange film was also really gorgeous to look at too, with the way they do the magic and stuff like that. All that stuff was really neat. Specifically, one of the big standout scenes for me is the music fight scene or whatever. I thought that was such a really cool integration of music into a fight scene between the music in the background and all the stuff that was happening in the scene. It was just great. I really enjoyed that scene. It's a huge standout for me in terms of what this movie did well. But there's obviously a lot of character stuff to talk about. So I'm intrigued just to see what you think, Andrew. But on the whole, I really enjoyed it.
The music scene was probably the scene that I least liked in the movie.
Why?
The first volley I was okay with. And then after that, I was like, come on, Sam Raimi. Come
on, it was fun.
It was egregious. It went on too long.
Maybe it's just me, because I'm such a huge sucker for things like music overall. So seeing, I don't know. I think that was just a really cool way to do it. It felt cartoony, but in a way that I enjoyed. Maybe for some people, if you don't have if you're not a huge fan of that type of stuff, but it just, I don't know. It felt like a really neat, because don't get me wrong, Marvel fight scenes can sometimes just be there. Sometimes you got to spice it up a little bit.
And I had no problem with that being the opening of the fight, but the whole fight being music notes.
Cool.
I thought it was too much. I thought it was cool. Why would they continue to use this as their only attack? They're wizards with incalculable numbers of spells with them. I think that was probably the biggest drawback to me overall from this movie is at a certain point, I get a little bit fatigued of the spell casting. And I think they need to get more creative with it. So far for me, Doctor Strange has been in 5 movies now. Spider-Man No Way Home, he didn't really cast an offensive spell, but I thought the spells looked cool. His own movie, the first one, made total sense that his spells were pretty basic, but he mostly did the whip thing. And that okay, fine. And the shields, I guess. Infinity War, by far, had the best combination of spells. His fight with Thanos, like to this day, I think is still one of the coolest things the MCU has ever done. I wanted to see that level of like different kinds of things in this movie, and I feel like I didn't get it from Strange, which was a little bit disappointing. I wanted like Sam Raimi to be a bit more creative with it, but the music thing, it was cool for the first part where he took the notes off of the sheet and threw them, and then after that I was like, but why are we continuing to do that back and forth? Why did the other Strange throw music notes back?
Because it was cool. I don't know. I don't have an explanation other than I thought it was cool, and you know, if I find it cool, it can stay. But that's fair. If you're not like, I don't know. I can get that it can be too much, but I enjoyed it. I just thought it was a neat way to spice up, your typical Marvel fight sequences that that they're kind of known for in terms of just like people punching people, effects, camera cuts. It was just a neat way to break up the monotony of fighting. But I'm interested to see though what you think about the characters, because there are lots of character choices in these films, or in this film, and I'm excited to see what you have to say. So what do you think?
Yeah, I'm a little bit sad with where they went with Wanda, but I also love it at the same time. I feel like she's one of the best villains they've ever done.
Yeah,
because her like choices all come from a good place, and it makes sense because that's what real villainy is, right? You believe that you're right. You believe that you're doing the compassionate thing and acting the way that you are. But what makes me feel sorry for that character is she goes through all this trauma of losing her parents when she's young, and then her twin, and then her boyfriend, and then she recreates her little town and brings him back to life, has kids, chooses to lose those to correct the wrongs that she's accidentally done to other people, makes the choice to start healing herself, but also has the Darkhold, which immediately corrupts her and like plays into her basest desires. And she doesn't lack agency in this movie. I feel like it's very clear that she is still the one making these choices, but the corruption from the Darkhold definitely looms large as like allowing that base self to grow unhinged and become a monster. I love how she's defeated, that it's not like a punch out, despite the fact that America Chavez did punch her. And also I love America Chavez. Oh
it was great.
She was great.
Yeah, she was great. She was great. The effects of her like punching with the star effect were really neat. I mean, like, I feel like if I cared more about the overall like character beats and such about Marvel films, I might have a bit more to say about Wanda's characterization. But like, that's like asking, I don't know. I guess it's hard for me to get mad because like they're different directors trying to fit characterization into one overarching plot. I don't know if that's making any sense, but like trying to be like whoever did WandaVision and obviously Sam Raimi, who did Multiverse of Madness, they're two different people, so like they're not going to have the same overarching like vision, I guess. I mean, maybe like, from the Marvel's higher ups or whatever, they're like, Wanda needs to end here, but how you get her to here is like up to you.
Your choice. Yeah.
So
that's how it works essentially from what I've been told. I think there's a lot of people who think that this movie kind of undid her character development from WandaVision, but I couldn't disagree more. Like, I feel like WandaVision played directly into this. And the last time we saw Wanda was her reading the Darkhold. And if you know anything about Marvel Comics, or you happen to watch the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. series that was on TV, they had a storyline with the Darkhold as well. It's like, as soon as you start to read from that book, it corrupts you. And so, yes, the Wanda that we see at the beginning of this movie is very different from the one that we saw at the end of WandaVision, who was like compassionate and did the right thing. But at the end of this movie, when she's confronted by her own children in another universe, seeing her as a monster, she's back to Wanda that we know, right? So, and she makes the decision to destroy the Darkhold's
in every
tower,
universe,
I guess. Like,
but also in every universe. So.
Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, I think it was. I mean, Elizabeth Olsen acted her butt off in that. Yeah, she's so good. It was great. The horror elements.
Yeah, I love the horror elements. I feel like that's where Sam Raimi really brought it in this movie.
Yes,
Was his horror background, bringing that to Wanda, so incredible. I love that.
It really was. It had like a flavor that no other Marvel film has had. We never really gotten the horror. We've gotten, the fun, campy movies, spy thrillers, whatnot, but we've never had like a horror type film. And I think this did really well. And I really enjoyed the moments and it was a lot darker than I thought it was going to be. There's a whole debate about, what the rating should have been.
I mean, in Quebec, the highest rating is PG-13. So
interesting. I mean, I don't really have an opinion one way or another, but there were definitely moments where I'm like, man, the imagery here is scary and spooky, and probably will give little kids nightmares. But I think it still ended in a good place of I don't know. There's a lot here to do with the characters, and I think even though some people may disagree with where Wanda's arc ended, I thought it was good, and the horror elements I think fit well here, and I'm intrigued to see what happens next. I mean, it's clear Wanda is still alive, even though she gets crushed by rubble. There's a little red poof or whatever of her magic. I assume that's her getting teleported away or whatever. So I don't think this is the last time we will see her. There's more for her to do. I really enjoyed it. Almost felt like there were two protagonists, I guess, of this film. Doctor Strange has his arc with his ex-girlfriend, wife, whose name I can't remember at this moment. Christine, thank you. He has his, personal arc, but Wanda's also has a huge personal arc here too. So I think I like
Wanda's story better.
Yes. And I think that's maybe because we've had more time with her as a character.
For sure.
Because, she had all of WandaVision. Sure. Doctor Strange has he had one movie compared to Wanda's TV series and, build up. But I still think they each got their moments and, stuff. I still think that they ended their character arcs went in a good place for me. And that ending, I will be intrigued to see what happens. I have no idea who at the very end showed up.
It's a sorceress named Clea.
Okay.
And
is she related at all to the Eternals? Because she looked like an Eternal. Okay.
No. Because she's from the Dark Dimension, which is where they traveled at the end of the movie. So that's very interesting. She's supposedly related to Dormammu, but in the comics becomes Doctor Strange's love interest. So we'll see how they go that way. But Charlize Theron in Marvel is... Nobody knew that was happening, so that's wild.
Yeah, but, I think it sets up. I mean, I think overall the story did well. We didn't even talk about the stuff like the X-Men things, Fantastic Four,
Illuminati.
Peggy Carter. Yeah, all that stuff. We didn't talk about it. I figured they were kind of doomed from the outset.
Black Bolt's death was so funny. I know it was brutal, and it wasn't necessarily played for laughs, but I am a big hater of the Inhumans, so I laughed.
I mean, they each had their death scene moments. Sad to see Peggy Carter die in front of my eyes, all that stuff. But I figured that they were doomed at the outset. But it was neat. Neat to see the stuff that they brought in with Charles Xavier, even though we kind of knew that because you heard his voice in one of the trailers, whatever. But still really cool. I have no idea if it'll amount to anything other than just here, neat callbacks or call forwards or whatever it is. But we didn't really even touch on that. There's a lot in this movie. We could probably go on for a long time. But I liked it overall as an experience, and I think it sets up interesting things for Marvel's future in terms of what they're doing. I don't know. It's just another weird Marvel movie, and weird is good in my opinion.
I've seen
I'd
a
like
lot
to
of
see more of this type of stuff because it was really cool visually and had a distinct tone.
I've seen a lot of negative reactions, not necessarily to this movie, although there have been some negative reactions to this movie. It seems like anytime Marvel steps outside of its relatively basic formula, that everyone's hey, do something different. When they do something different, all the critics are oh, this is not a Marvel movie. And they just freak out. So I think it's time we should just not pay attention to Rotten Tomatoes anymore. It's just
Yeah.
not relevant to people's interests. But I really thought this movie was a breath of fresh air. But one thing that I think Phase 4 of the MCU is suffering from, and I don't think a lot of people are realizing why, is because it's not really Phase 4. It's Phase 1 again. Those first 3 phases were a complete story from beginning to end that lasted 22 or 23 movies, and that's over. We don't have Captain America. We don't have Iron Man. We still have Thor. But like all those heroes are being phased out into the next generation of characters who are going to carry this universe forward. So we're kind of starting not necessarily from 0, but from like 5 out of 100. And these movies in Phase 4 outside of Black Widow are doing a lot to set up some things that are going to happen 10 years from now, like the first Avengers did, like the first Iron Man did. And I've seen some people say like, oh, well, that first phase of Marvel was like more self-contained stories. Like, I mean, sure, because they're origin stories and they weren't building into as much of a universe.
They had to build the mythos, basically.
Yes. And also, like, if you look back and watch that first phase of Marvel movies now, they're not that good. Like, Iron Man still holds up, but the first Avengers movie is a very thin plot line that is built around a very cool looking climax where like the whole hype around it is the Avengers getting together for the first time. It's not a great movie. It's not anywhere close to like Infinity War, which has that times 10 plus an actual like climax of a years long plot line, right? It's not even as good as some of the more recent Marvel movies. So this is Phase 1 again. And some of the things that they are setting up, we're not going to see for a long time.
Yeah.
So it seems like everything's kind of scattered right now, right? Like the end of Shang-Chi kind of related into this movie, right? But
yeah,
it wasn't
I was almost
there.
Hoping he would show up.
So was I. But
really
it made
hoping,
sense not to.
I know.
It would have been too much.
It would have been too much, but I was like, where is he? Where is he? He's
Yeah.
like kind of indirectly related, but yes, anyway, continue your point.
But yeah, like the Eternals, the end of Eternals has nothing to do with anything else that we've seen so far, right? The end of this movie, with Doctor Strange going into the Dark Dimension, we don't know if we'll see that for like the next 4 years. They have so many plans on the docket. We just don't know where they're going with things, right? And we know that the next big bad is assumed to be Kang the Conqueror, who we'll see for the first time in his Conqueror form in Ant-Man. So like there's a lot of stuff in the air, and I think that this studio and Kevin Feige in particular have earned a level of trust from the fan base that we should just see it through, even if we're not quite understanding where they're going right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's not a lot of series goes through this type of stuff. Like,
yeah, I mean, how many series go 20 plus movies?
Sure, you kind of get this in like video games, stuff like
Yeah.
long running series, like Kingdom Hearts does this type of stuff where you have your big resolving stuff, and then you've got to like build things back up again and whatnot. Like, so you don't often like it's mostly like things like long running series, in terms of like that have like dramatic action and stuff like that. So this is like a little bit of a not retread of Phase 1, like you said, but still, like we're in the setting up phase. You can't.
Yes.
You have to set up for like you got to plant the Chekhov's gun for it to go off later. Like you gotta make those steps and build that world mythos, and especially because the world now is so much bigger. The Marvel world is so much bigger than it was when it first started. Like there's so many more pieces.
It's about to expand. Like, can you imagine how it's going to look when they get mutants?
Yeah, I mean,
when the Fantastic Four comes around.
Yeah, they have to move so many more pieces now. It's going to take it since they have to move so many more pieces. It might take a little bit longer for things to coalesce because they're just the world has expanded so much. It's not as I still like the original Avengers because it's such a compact movie. There's not as many heroes. So like everybody gets their chances to shine. I don't know. Like I still like that type of movie. Sure, like things like Infinity War might be more bombastic and have more, I guess, through lines and plot things, but there is something to be said about those very small movies. I don't know, it gets me a little nostalgic for it in a way. Just we didn't know what this would become and whatnot, but I see, that they're trying to do like they're trying to build their story and tell their story, and I think it's okay that we're still getting set up as long as like the movies continue to be complete. Like the characters go through their arcs, there's a complete plot from one start to finish and whatnot. So you just got to get used to it a little bit. But the things I enjoy the most about media sometimes are the world building and whatnot. And I think Marvel's doing a really good job of expanding its world and its universe and whatnot. So we'll see if the things from Multiverse of Madness pay off. But I've been enjoying what they've added to the mythos because it's fun. And as we talked about it, we want Marvel to be weird. We want it to stay weird. And I think that they're going in a good direction with that.
100% agree. All right, can't wait for Thor: Love and Thunder now. The countdown begins. I think Miss Marvel is first.
Oh,
so we've got Miss Marvel. Kenobi comes out the week before Miss Marvel.
Oh, boy.
Ahsoka started filming today with Dave Filoni's hat on the chair. There's a lot to look forward to in Disney-related media, we'll say. This is a Disney podcast now. But thanks for making the Cross-Check NHL Show your first listen every Tuesday and Friday. Now make your second listen Locked On NHL. From first-round matchups to each Stanley Cup kiss, Locked On NHL covers the playoffs like no other. Hear the latest news and opinions from local experts every Monday through Friday. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts.